Good afternoon, Senate institutions back for round two. We are looking to go over section 2, Agency of Human Services, the Department of Corrections, Women's Correctional and Reentry Facility. And we are, and I'm sorry.
I'm Sabrina Parrish from
PBS. We have Sabrina here and Sabrina?
Sabrina, yes.
Okay, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Sabrina Parrish, PGS Project Manager. And I should have slides.
You got a T on here, so that's why I was reading it, so I apologize.
That's okay.
I bet that's never happened before.
Never. So while she brings those up, I can start talking. I'm just to give you a little history of how we got to the point we are today. The Criminal Justice Reform Strategy, which is part of the Justice Reinvestment 2 initiative, asks us to look at the correction system as a whole to assess population trends, programming, infrastructure needs. You can flip to the next slide right away. Evaluate how we run corrections throughout the state, whether right now we have multiple locations throughout the state, whether that is efficient or a campus style is efficient or a combination of the both. We also looked at the efficiency of our capacity, treatment, programming, capital costs, and the women's portion is just a portion of this overall study. So we have conducted 2 feasibility studies. One was completed last May with HFK Architects. They gave a presentation then to, I believe, both committees. They will be giving a more detailed presentation sometime within the next 2 weeks. So I won't go too much into their report. This is kind of an overview just to give you a little history before we get to their reports. So if you go to the next slide. So of that feasibility study, we had overall project goals. We wanted to eliminate out-of-state housing, bring our facilities up to national standards, reduce recidivism, introduce reentry programs to improve outcomes, and the women's facility is a piece of that overall goal. Flip to the next slide. So this is our current women's facility, the Chittenden Regional Correctional Facility in South Burlington. So this was a facility that was built for a male population, and it was built as a short-term stay facility. So it does not have adequate programming or services space for long-term housing or specifically for women. As Amanda had mentioned, the women's population, their facilities tend to be a little larger. They have more programming needs and more medical needs. So I do want to mention here, the capacity of Chittenden Regional Correctional Facility is 177 bed capacity, and it's been any idea of how many years or if we've ever reached that population?
Never with the women's population.
Okay, so we've never built the facility to capacity.
So that's the one we want to replace, right?
Yes.
And so 177 bed capacity, I'm going to go with what Joe has said is population. With 177 bed capacity, and we're at 107 there now, what makes it so crowded? Just the design of, just not properly designed?
Yeah, so this was designed, again, built in 1974, designed as a regional detention facility. Very small rooms, very small living units. Small rooms and small living units require more staff. So as we talked about staffing, as we try to expand, we want to make sure our staff are in a good environment as well. The living area for the population as it is now, the majority of those cells are wet cells, so you've got the toilet, the sink, everything in there. Again, very small, crowded, cramped area, very outdated, cinder block, steel.
It was never built for rehabilitation.
No, it was not. It was built for detention.
So again, just to understand it, and it's really important for the committee, and that's why I want to do it, because there's a lot of arguments going around this building about a lot of this stuff. And so as much as we can understand, it's important for me, I think, to get it out to everybody, including myself. So this facility was really based more about how many people can we sleep in there and not what we can do when we're in there, right?
Correct, and I don't have the slide showing the size of our male facility, but this facility is only basically 52,000 square feet, which is much smaller
50
than
years ago.
the population, than the facilities for male population of similar.
So would a single unit maybe be 10 by 12?
For cells are 7x9 is the standard. Whether the facility actually meets that standard, I actually do not know.
And are they single cell? I mean, single
I don't think there's
occupant?
any single occupant status in it right
There's not any single?
No.
Okay.
other than the site.
They even took a gym for that at the Netting, because the gym was, they got away with that. It was crowded.
And the other important thing to mention is it's only 6 acres on this site, so it's not feasible to expand or build here.
Right.
And we can go to the next slide. So these next two slides are just showing you what the facility looks like now, just for comparison to some images I'm going to show you later. This is exterior. We can flip to the next one to show interior. And so as you can see, this is a traditional, if you envision a correctional facility, this is what you envision. It's dark, it's joyless, there's not a lot of hope here. We flip to the next slide. So this is in the background, the main reentry facility. The fence she was talking about, you can see that here. Is just a small fence to keep children in. That's the only, and this is basically in the visitor yard, just to keep children inside. The facility itself is not around the fence. The doors are open. These women can walk outside whenever they want to. So the first step of designing a new women's facility is programming and conceptual design. So one of the very first steps in programming is we sit down as a group, DOC, BGS, our design team, any other people that want to be involved, and we list all of the goals we hope to accomplish in this building. And so this is just, this is some of them. So there's lots.
Right.
Do previously incarcerated people, are they in this process?
We did not at this stage because we didn't want to get them excited in programming and conceptual design. We actually DOC has done that now for the next phase of the project, but because of the long process this takes, they felt it would be disappointing for them to expect to have a women's facility, a new women's facility, when we did not have funding yet. And so now that we're moving forward, they have been involved.
Because you guys have been in a lot of these presentations with the main facility and stuff, and one of the questions I wish I would have asked her is, what would have revoked somebody's privilege to be in the reentry program? I mean, do you remember any questions being asked in that way?
Behavioral issues, I mean, any type of significant behavior, lashing out, violence, physical violence, issues with use at I know Amanda gave an example at one of the last presentations where somebody's friend had showed up at their job and brought alcohol, they drank, came back, they went back up, a little timeout.
And we're going back up, they go into the more secure detention center. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I don't see natural light. Is it just there somewhere? I don't see it?
I'll get into that later.
Okay, all right.
This was more programming.
Okay, got it.
We didn't list everything.
I
here.
saw LED, so I thought, oh, we're getting.
Oh, okay.
Sabrina,
Yes.
Thanks.
it's important to talk about your program versus our program.
Yes, so we have two different types of programming. DOC's program is the services they deliver. My program is the space, basically the list of spaces in the building. That was very confusing. We were making to come up with a different name.
Yeah,
We
and
haven't been able to.
Even in TSU, there's two kinds of programming. There's the programming that you need when you're about to get released, right? And then there's the programming that I would hope would be a normal thing that is in Maine, but I don't think it is here everywhere.
So we would have risk reduction programming. So that's based on violence, criminality, risk assessments, determine the risk reduction programming that somebody would be eligible for, need to participate in. And then there's programming around vocational programming, educational programming, some of the volunteer programs around NAA, as Amanda mentioned, but those are all part of the programs that we offer.
So is the risk reduction, is that the one that they need to do before they leave?
Determined by their risk assessment, yes.
Okay.
So that would be violent offenders, sex offenders, that's the risk, what we call risk reduction.
Okay. And one thing Amanda did not mention this time, but she did mention in the House presentation, is that she has very little issues with contraband or anything like that, because the women are so thankful to be in that environment. And we can go to the next slide. And so you hear trauma-informed care mentioned a lot. These are the principles of trauma-informed care. And so the goal of trauma-informed design is to create an environment that will promote a sense of calm, safety, dignity, empowerment, and well-being for all occupants. Architecturally, we can do this through adapting spatial layouts, thoughtful furniture choices, visual interest, light, color, art, and biophilic design, which I will explain in a few slides. We can go to the next slide. So this is kind of our practical vision, which is to provide appropriate types of housing for the different classifications and treatment needs of incarcerated individuals being held. Go to the next slide. So the key elements of biophilic design include natural light, attention to sound, natural elements, calming and color palettes, nature views and images. Studies show that biophilic design elements improve health, increase mood and feelings of well-being, improve productivity, reduce stress levels, improve mental restoration, and reduce fatigue. And this is beneficial to both incarcerated individuals and the staff. And so you see the San Mateo reentry facility in the background. There are reentry facilities all over the country. This program is not unique to Maine. It is well studied and it is everywhere. So here, yes. So these next few slides, we can just flip through as I'm talking. These are examples of secure facilities and reentry facilities throughout the country. And this is just to show you the possibilities of what a modern facility looks like and to highlight the contrast between our current facilities.
Are there desks in our current facilities?
Yes.
In the cells?
Yes. All right, we can flip on to the next one. So this is just for the project phases. Where we are right now is we're just finishing up the programming and conceptual design phase for this facility. Once we have a site selected and our capacity is finalized, we would issue an RFP to continue the design process from schematic design through construction. It will take roughly 2 years of design and then 2 years of construction until we're operational.
On that site or any other?
Any
No,
site,
any
any
site,
site,
okay.
yeah. So once we have a site and we've determined basically finalized our program, which is our capacity,
okay.
then we would go on to the next step. Because of the size of this facility, it's not efficient to continue on with the process until those decisions are made.
So 2 years of design and 2 years of construction.
Yes.
That's good, because I heard 5 years of design before, so.
It depends on the size of the facility and whether you're including that programming and central design. In design, we've already done that part, which was a year. The feasibility study before that was another year.
Okay.
So when you're doing that all together, you end up about 5 years of the full design
Okay, but
process.
2 years from now, if this
Yes.
goes forward,
Yes.
construction would start.
Yes.
And if we find a good piece of property to put it on,
That's right.
I heard you
That's-
guys
that's the
have
big one.
the idea of a piece of.
always in there.
And so one of the recommendations that HOK will explain in further detail is to co-load the facilities because of our small size. We're a very small state, we have small numbers. And so these next few slides are a snapshot in time. So what you may see right now is not necessarily what the end will be. I just wanted to show you what programming and central design looks like. And so this you've probably seen before. This is a bubble diagram. This is a adjacency diagram. This is basically just a collection of the spaces that are in the building and what they should be next to. Each of these bubbles has another bubble diagram associated with it and numerous Excel spreadsheets to go into further detail. So that's basically what we have at the end of programming is bubble diagrams and lots of Excel spreadsheets. So that's why I don't have any pretty pictures to show you.
That's all right, so what, you can just give us an example, like,
Right, and so you see this red line right now, that is basically the secure portion of the facility, re-entry facility on the same site but separate. They would, and one of the benefits of this, if we can share the major core elements, which is where your big cost comes in. We don't need 2 commercial kitchens. We have smaller programming spaces within the re-entry space, but the office space, the core of those programs are within the main facility, and the staff is traveling to deliver those services. Same with admin. Staffing space, we don't have to repeat those spaces, so we can do a smaller core and re-entry that is really just to facilitate what needs to happen in that portion of the facility.
so is mental health in one of these bubbles?
Yes, and I will talk about that in a little bit as well. And then we can flip to the next slide here. So this is a conceptual design example of our specialty housing concepts. These are very small units. You can see there's just a few beds. This is actually an example of long-term and acute mental health. So the long-term care is actually individual rooms, but there is space in the room for a second bed for a caregiver, which could be a family member from the outside or another incarcerated individual who's volunteering to help. Each of these units, as well as all of our units, have access to outdoor space. This is supplementary to the traditional larger backyard. And we can flip to the next one. And so this is the minimum medium security housing, a conceptual design example. Once again, you see that outdoor space. And I just want to talk a little bit, which I don't even feel I need to now that Amanda has talked about her bed count. But I will give just you, because our numbers are so small, about the average size of a medium minimum security unit across the United States is around 40 beds. Our units are 40 beds now. We only have one each, one medium, one minimum. And therefore, we're even going smaller to split these units in half and do 20 each side so that DOC has the operational flexibility they need to separate individuals that need to be separated for various reasons. I just wanted to say, so this whole unit, 40 beds, is roughly 9,000 square feet. Whether we add 5 beds or take away 5 beds, you're not decreasing this core size anymore. You're really only decreasing the physical space that those beds or those units take up. These are 2-bed units. And so our numbers are so small that just decreasing those small numbers, it's not about cost. So just keep that in mind when you're having these bed numbers, that it's not the cost that is going to be affected. Our current facility right now in Crow is around 23,000 square feet. So once again, 9,000 square feet versus 23,000 square feet. These housing units aren't what takes up the most space. It's the core. All of our housing units together is 42,000 square feet, which is not even half of the size of the facility. Our re-entry facility right now is 13,000 square feet. That will grow substantially, probably double if it is separate in a different location from the re-entry facility because of the inability to share that forces. And so our next slide shows where we are currently at with the bed numbers. So we have 6 specialty bed housing units. I will let DOC talk about who is in each one. We have close custody, long-term, chronic medical, acute mental health, behavioral mental health, and an honors housing. And then medium, minimum, we have 40 beds each. And then we get into our operational capacity, which is not traditionally included in your bed count number because those are beds that are needed for operational needs, which basically is not a permanent bed. You're there for a short period of time, whether intake, in-cap, assessment, which DOC will explain, infirmary, and then we have a flex housing unit, which DOC will also explain. And then on the re-entry side, we are showing 30 beds of re-entry at this time. I don't know if Amanda got into it this time, but her building is the 3rd building that the re-entry program was in. So they had 2 different buildings before they built their own building. This is a new program. It will take a while to get started. So the hope is eventually that re-entry would expand to 50 beds. And so one of the decisions to make is whether we build that now or we just build with the anticipation that we will expand in the future. So that lowers our upfront cost. That is all I have. I'll let DOC jump in to speak about what these terms mean.
Good afternoon, Al Forman, Chief of Operations for the Department of Corrections. So what Sabrina talked about, very preliminary in what we're talking about, but what we haven't been able to do is take a lot from Maine, and we've spent a lot of time in communication with Maine DOC, both at the administrative level with their commissioner, deputy commissioner, as well as at the local level with the management facility there. Bed count is a big piece, and if you could, when we get to the point breaking that down, that was a lot of the feedback we did take is the need for the infirmary beds, the mental health beds, really being able to separate that population to meet that trauma-informed intent of where we're going with our mission going forward. One thing that was on there is an assessment. We mentioned a little bit ago about detainees and sentenced individuals, where we're putting them all together because we don't have the space for them now. Our hope is to create an assessment unit. Anybody coming in now they're booked, they're processed, and then they go right into a general population. They have no time to adjust. An assessment unit would give us the time to get them in, get them settled, kind of an orientation unit, get them their risk assessments, their classification assessments, their medical and mental health assessments, and then slowly transition them to what part of the facility they would best be suited for. That is not something we're able to do now. The programming space is another big area. We have a lot of program availability within the women's facility right now. We don't have the space. We have Divas, which is part of Vermont Works for Women, or the network against the Vermont network. That's what we see. I think you know who I'm talking about. Sorry. And then Vermont Works for Women, Divas, Kids Apart program. We have a great relationship with the Kids Apart program when they're bringing the children in to meet with the moms. There's just no space. It's a very cramped, tiny area. The kids don't get to run around. It's dark. I mean, we painted the walls, we put murals up. It's just not healthy. It's not a healthy environment. So to try to expand that visitation area, I know Amanda talked about the lactation rooms. We don't have that, and we do offer that for the women, and we do.
Oh, you do?
We do. So they are able to just freeze their milk, and we get it moved out to the children in the community. So that is something we're able to offer, but it's not the best environment or circumstances to do that. So to try to do trauma-informed and gender-responsive treatment and services in a cinder block environment, it doesn't work. It's no matter what you can have the best programming in the world, but if you're in a cinder block room,
They were designed for that 50 years ago.
and even Amanda talking about the Women's Center built in 2002. We built Springfield in 2002. Programming wasn't on our mind.
No, you try to think 50 years ahead from now.
And that's what we need to,
Yeah.
that's what we need to think about. We don't need to think about today's problems. We need to think about 20 years from now problems and be ready to accommodate and use that space accordingly.
So why don't you want to, or maybe you want to, but you can't, but why is there not a separation planned for the detainees?
Again, it's a space issue. As you all know, we currently have a population out of state because we don't have the capacity in state to hold them all. COVID has presented additional challenges for us with having to convert regular units or segregation units into intake and isolation units, quarantine units. So we've lost some space to accommodate for the pandemic and the challenges that has presented.
Are there any women out of state?
There are not. No.
And how many males are out of state at this time?
124.
Yeah.
And that's we've never had to send women out of state, but that's my fear. If we don't build right, I don't want to have to face that challenge, and we shouldn't have to face
You
it.
might be okay going to Maine.
But they would probably love to go to Maine, but again, we'd like to stay away from that. Yeah, so our detainee population right now, I think we're at a little over 500 detainees in our system of about 1,400 total incarcerated individuals. So 500 individuals that are detainees, trying to move them either into one unit or into different areas of the state.
Yeah, I was just wondering about the women in particular for this one, because you're designing it.
So we've got 40, I think there's 42 women that are detained today. And our biggest unit, I think, is 30. And again, we could put them
So
on.
you'd have to build another pod, is what it would be.
Within the Chittenden facility, I apologize if I missed it. I don't want to sound like I'm not being observant. Is there any type of reentry in that, any separation at all?
The closest thing so we have had a work through program not to go out to work and back and forth. It's been with an officer. They go out, community service type work. But we do have what we've recently stood up as an honors unit. And Sabrina mentioned that on the slides that she had. But what we've done is identified about 15 women that have been their long-term, their minimum custody. there is no officer in that unit. They're living on their own in the unit. They, freshen it up with painting as much as they can. But they're policing themselves. It's basically creating a therapeutic community on their own in hopes of preparing them to be in a reentry facility. So we're starting to take those steps now. We have to, because we can't just say, here's a reentry facility. Go. We've got to prepare our staff and the population for that, because it will be a huge shift in our culture and how we operate our facilities.
Please go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this may not be a question for you, Al, it might be for Joe or Rena, I'm not sure. We're in the design phase here, and I can imagine that some of potential pushback will be, you're going to spend a lot more money building this type of facility rather than what has been considered for so many years a traditional detention center. How much more money, if that's true, are we looking at? I think I've been sold on the benefits of it and the results that we could see, but that will be brought up, I'm sure.
Yeah.
This is way more expensive than if you just put them in a cell.
And I'll let that talk to them.
So building a reentry center is a less expensive construction type than
It
a
is.
garden facility, yes.
Oh. Well, you might have just answered my question perfectly.
So, can we do Maine? Are we ready for Maine? Can we do that? We can transition to that. We have the capability to do that.
I believe we do. And Kathy Aston-Borski's been on. She's our Director of Women's Services. She works closely with Maine, has taken a lot of information from the state of Maine. Our current superintendent at Chittenden, Teresa Messier, she is again working and implementing a lot of the same programs. We're doing a lot of work with the National Institute of Corrections. We've brought in a program called Safety Matters, which is training all of our staff in that facility around gender-informed, trauma-informed practices. We're looking at a brand new classification system, which is the WRNA, which is the Women's Risk Needs Assessment. So it can be used as both a risk assessment and classification tool for us. That's the same tool that Maine uses. So we're starting to take some of what we're seeing, not only in Maine, but nationally, and what's working to really rethink our system.
Kathy, you jumped on. You got something to add? Oh, we can't hear you.
It's so normal.
It's
You're
a
not
normal,
telling
it's
me.
a normal, but
Yeah.
She doesn't believe it.
No.
we have her anyway. Hold on, let's see if we can help you on this side.
She's not muted.
You're not muted.
Is her speaker turned up on her?
Is your speaker turned up?
Well, I'll ask a question meantime. So you said the reentry is less expensive. Is the other part of it less expensive or the same price?
I would say same. I mean, the cost of construction right now is unpredictable. It's expensive. We're seeing it across the board. So I don't think we can compare it to facilities we built 20 years ago. But it's comparable construction to building a traditional facility. It's really the aesthetics that are different.
Yes.
I'm wondering about energy efficiency. If you replace this building, which I assume is an energy hog, with something newer, how much cost savings would we see in energy?
So that really depends on the size of the building, what systems we choose, where the site is. So I can't really answer that at this time, but we do. So the state of Vermont we are one of the, I think right now we may be the top, or we're in the top 3 of the strictest energy codes in the country, and BGS goes above and beyond that. We look at life cycle costs as well as carbon footprint and things like that to make our design decisions. Right.
What are we gonna do with the old
It's $1 million question.
Well, it's prime real estate, right? I mean, it's a really
It is,
good,
yeah,
can we offload that for enough money that
Oh,
it makes this look
yeah.
reasonable where
It
we're
would
putting
sell, they'd have to probably gut it or tear it down, but it would sell. So it's on the bike, but the bus route, everything is right there, all kinds of services. Oh, sure, it would sell for even apartments because housing shortage. But I mean, what you get out of it, that's the other question, but it would turn over. But it's an old building, it's 50 years old. like
Oh,
you
it's
said.
just the location. It's
Yeah,
like that
location.
building on Cherry Street. I don't care what people do with it. It's location,
But you got
right?
a couple of $3 million tear it down if you're gonna. just-
Do we have to do that or does the new person do that?
Either way.
Negotiable.
No,
Or
whatever.
it should be on us, right?
Sell it as is, where is.
Right, yeah. Because
Could be a theme hotel.
you never know.
But someone's gonna figure it out.
Right.
Come stay in the old jail.
Kathy, can you hear anything? No? Okay, we'll catch you again.
Maybe she should log off and log in.
Al, what else?
I think you'll be very surprised or very impressed with the presentation coming from HOK.
Yeah,
When they did it last year, it was very impressive.
it was.
And again, the work that they have put into this, we met briefly yesterday to prepare for that. They put a lot of work into it. I think you'll see a lot more than just the bubble diagrams coming, which are great, but it's kind of hard to picture, right? The work that we've done, I mean, we've met with HOK on a weekly basis for probably the last year, almost a year. So our staff have had a lot of input in this. The subject matter experts around mental health, around food services, around programming, have all had input into this. To your earlier question, we are bringing in the incarcerated population to talk with them. We meet bi-monthly with the stakeholders group internally, so we're bringing in the network, Prisoners' Rights, Vermont Works for Women, Divas. They're all coming to the table. We're meeting, we're talking, we're sharing data, we're taking input. We're hearing from previously incarcerated individuals. So, I mean, we feel like we're doing it the right way, and we're getting the input from everybody. We want to be well informed in making, this is a big decision, and it's a big change for Vermont.
Yeah, we gotta get it right.
Right.
We gotta get it right.
Gotta put people in a place, some humane places. I mean,
Yeah.
you just can't. How you used to have a cell with bars, 2 people, this big a space, and those days are gone.
Yeah, you
Well,
gotta
they're not
get
gone yet for our people.
Well, no, what I'm saying,
They should
the
be gone.
future, the
Yeah.
future is what you gotta
Yeah.
look at today. And you want people to get out as working citizens and,
Yeah.
add to the community, but the situation they're under now is, even, men's facilities, they change every so many years. It used to be a jail was a jail, so to speak, with the bars and the little no windows, and, the stuff like Windsor. I don't know if anybody,
Yeah, I've
years
been
ago, that's, I had a chance to go there,
Yeah.
and that was just terrible, you walk by the electric chair and everything else. It was, it was just stuff that, you just don't wanna, I mean, people make mistakes, they end up there, but you can't treat them like, you gotta treat them with some sort of respect if you expect when they get out. So that South Burlington, that's just a terrible place. But at the time, that was the thing. Just like all the sheriffs had jails in their building, they all housed they had people there. I remember McLaughlin was a sheriff in Burlington. He used to feed he had a bunch of cells there, and they fed them and everything else.
Yeah, we're gonna save it.
Yeah,
Save it Newport.
do that little cell, I can't imagine with no restroom facilities with 2 people with nothing. Oh my God, it's just a terrible situation. But at least we're thinking of the future. That was good to hear Maine today because there's a lot of good things there.
And it's also healthy for the public, for the staff.
Sure,
It's not
yeah, the
just
staff
public,
gotta work every day,
I
sure.
mean, our staff are taxpayers and they're,
You put them in all day long in a shift in there, or longer shifts, boy, that's, ooh.
so, a trauma-informed environment for them is good as well. And that's a retention strategy that we're looking at also.
Tough.
And I think we've done reentry really well for a long time. We haven't done transition really well. And I think this is an opportunity to move from just, I know we're calling it a reentry facility, but it's really about transitioning people with the tools they need, the jobs they need, the skills they need to be successful and to not come back. And I think what Amanda spoke to, a 0% recidivism rate for their people that have a degree and a job. they're not coming back.
That's what it was 50 years ago. That wasn't even an issue. But it was small. But look at today. They all need mental care, and there's so many more items to get them not prepared for this for society.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much. Thanks for coming in today. Very good day. Yes.